So I am a current sitting director of the Alberta Prosperity Society. Now, there are some that would want you to believe otherwise, but that isn't true. I still am. As a director of the Alberta Prosperity Society, one of my jobs was to make sure that the society is being run and the project is being run and managed in a way that was sustainable and going to fulfill the mission and vision of the Alberta Prosperity Project, which was to educate Albertans as to the benefits and merits of Alberta independence. That's it. So, there's some things that I had a concern with, and I brought these up. I raised them as a director, wanting to include them in board meetings, specifically during the Stay Free campaign. One of my concerns was that Alberta Prosperity Project needed to continue doing the education, because there were so many people that still didn't know why we needed a referendum. And we had some heated arguments about that, me and Mitch mostly. I decided it's not worth fighting over this. We're going to start Let's Talk Alberta. We'll carry the torch and be done with it. Thinking that day one after the signatures were handed in, APP would be back hitting the ground running, advertising, educating, doing all the stuff. Well, it's a month later, nothing has been done. And that really, really was it was eating away at me, because this needs to happen. Now this is the real crappy part. We raised some concerns about some of the things that were going on, and some of the things that were with the leadership with APP that we needed to talk about at the very least. Because the way this was structured is that the Alberta Prosperity Project is governed by the Alberta Prosperity Society. And the CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project works for the board of the Alberta Prosperity Society. In that, we decide how the project is supposed to run. The CEO executes that, and communicates with us, and this kind of thing. Well, it wasn't happening. So we raised these concerns. And we raised these concerns at the end of last year. We had some conversations like, hey, maybe we need to find some new leadership for APP, because Mitch is going to be busy doing this campaigning. And I think he did a fantastic job. He got the grassroots motivated. A lot of people followed him and continue to do so. But some of us believed that we needed something different. We needed another group of people to come on board. And maybe Mitch wasn't the guy to do that. Not trying to take away from anything he did. No. Well, this was taken as a threat. That we were trying to fire everyone. So my two major concerns were, we need to make sure the project continues under leadership that's going to get us past the next phase. And number two, we need to make sure that we are legally solid in that we know what's going on. We're confident that we can sustain and we can defend against any attacks that come, because they will come. And these were taken as threats. And so rather than dealing with these things, Mitch and Jeff decided that they would just take the opportunity to remove the board. And I only say this because it's coming back to me in emails that are getting circulated around that I was trying to take over and become the CEO and fire everyone and do all these things. Well, that's completely not true. I was trying to fulfill my duties as a director of the Alberta Prosperity Society. So anyway, they did this thing where they just said, oh, none of the board exists. We put in a new board and that's it. And so we're at this meeting thinking, that's not right. That our board is elected by democratic process through board meetings as reflected in the minutes. I believe Jeff even seconded my the motion to appoint me to the board when I came back on the board. And we're left feeling kind of stunned. And then Mitch said something very interesting to me. He said, I was tired of the trouble with the board. And presumably the trouble was our demand for transparency, legal certainty, those types of things, and fulfilling the leadership role of the CEO as in a two-way street here. And so he said, I saw an opportunity to remove the board and I took it.
What?
I'm not even kidding you.
What? So
I'm not kidding
so
you.
he removed. Okay, so he removed you from the board of Alberta Prosperity Society, is what you're saying?
No, and that's
Okay.
the interesting part.
What?
They actually didn't.
I'm confused here.
Because as I go through the Societies Act and I go through the APS bylaws, I realize, okay, well, and this stuff is public. Like you can look this stuff up yourself. So I'm not, I'm not speaking of things that I'm not allowed to speak of. The idea was that because our filings didn't get done, and again, this is public record. And one of the things was a notice of new directors, that we were never directors at all. Well, the notice of directors, that's just to notify the government who the directors are, who the new directors are. It's the society's bylaws that set out how the directors are appointed. And so I've been a director for, I don't know, about a year, engaging in business that the board does with Jeff at meetings, with him, representing me as counsel to the society. Not me personally, but the society as a whole. And then they pull this and say, oh, you were never directors. And then Mitch tells me and us that, oh, I just did this because I was tired of the trouble. And these are things that I had brought up, like I think there's a conflict because our lawyer is also a director on the board. How can our lawyer represent us if he's also a director deciding what happens? These aren't good things. So, yeah, that happened, and now I'm forced into a position where, I have some very difficult choices to make because these people are my friends, but I think an independent Alberta is more important. I believe that the education part of this is the most important, because it doesn't matter what we do with politics or politicians if we don't educate Albertans as to the merits and benefits of independence, and they don't know what to ask for. They're not going to ask for it, right? And now here my concerns have manifested in an entire month of wasted time that nothing's been done.
Yep.
And now I see this other thing happening where, Jeff is talking about, well, maybe Mitch should be the interim premier after we remove Danielle. And then I'm like, now I understand. Yeah. Now I understand. This is a political thing, right?
Yeah.
It's about the